I'd like to talk about the idea of playing from high status or a low status, because I think it has a lot to do with confidence. If you have a high status, if you're coming in thinking you're better than, okay, maybe taken to extremes, that's certainly arrogant and it's certainly not appealing to the people that are dealing with you. When it comes to a competition, it's better to see yourselves as better than your opponents, as being more than enough to do whatever it is you need to do to succeed. In that particular context, it probably is better to have an inflated view of yourself rather than a deflated view that you're not enough. It's been talked about a lot in terms of human interaction, whether it's a dating situation, whether the person you're trying to woo thinks that you are above the average. That's probably a good thing if they perceive you as being that way. Certainly better than if they saw you as being below average and not enough. They talk about that in the dating situations and other human relationships. When it comes to business relationships, it depends. You want to get respect coming in from a high status or a slightly higher status is probably a good thing. If you put yourself too high above the people that you're trying to impress, that's probably not such a good thing because they're likely able to see through your illusion, and that is going to have you lose credibility. If you're coming in to talk to your boss, you're probably better off coming in at a little bit lower status than them in order to inflate their own ego, their own sense of self. It's been talked about quite a bit in human interaction with high status and low status, and it has a lot to do with the inner game, the way that we see ourselves. It's a good thing to increase your status in your own mind and have a sense that you are good enough. Everyone operates from the stories they tell themselves about themselves. And they're often based on memories of things that happened in our past. And it's usually, for most people, memories when we came up short, when we weren't enough. And they hurt and they stick with us. And it's probably because we don't want to repeat our same mistakes. We tend to focus more attention on those stories when we didn't meet our expectations. And that isn't a really good thing for us to do because we're now focused on our shortcomings rather than our strengths. If we want to go through the world powerfully, and if we want to be able to do things that are extraordinary, we want to come in with the idea that we are capable, that we are confident, that we do play from a high status, whether you're trying to get respect from the people that you are competing against. And then again, you have to look at it in terms of your relationship with your horse. If you have too much of a domineering, authoritative, do what I tell you to do attitude towards your horse, it depends on the personality of the animal, but in many cases, the horse is going to come to resent that. Horses don't have the cognitive abilities to project themselves into the future and put thought into the things that people put a lot of thought into. But all that being said, horses will react to the energy that's around them. And for a rider to have a little bit of a higher status than a horse is probably the perfect level. If it goes too far above, not as good. And it certainly isn't as good if the rider doubts themselves and lacks confidence. The horse is going to pick up on that, and the horse is not going to feel secure. The ideal level is for the rider to have a slightly higher status than the horse. And I don't think this is anything that's really been talked about much in terms of equestrian psychology. I think for people that have been around horses a lot and see the dynamics in play, it becomes obvious that horses are picking up on things. And one of those things that's really a key piece is the energy that's projected from the people that they have contact with. And again, I think you need to take the individual personality of the animal that you're riding. If you have a stallion that's loaded up with a lot of natural hormones, a lot of testosterone, if you come in too strong, they say don't look a stud horse, don't look a horse in the eye because he's going to take that as a challenge. That's the natural reaction for when you stare somebody down. And so I know that in the years that I've been around horses, if there's an aggressive horse, if there's a horse that's really full of himself, it's not a good idea to go in having a power struggle with that horse. Even a mare that might be moody and largely driven by the estrogen levels in her system, I think you're better off trying to get along than trying to force anything from that animal. And so it's something that you really should take into consideration, the animal you're riding and what might work best in terms of the status that you're coming in with. Too high is certainly not good, especially in the examples I've just given you. Tom Mulrine, equestrianhypnocoach.com.